Okay, yeah.
All right, so welcome to the session. Today we're going to be talking about working with Gen Z students in a coaching capacity. And my name is Mark Wichman. I'm a Tiny Habits certified coach. I'm currently going through the ICF training as well, which is a different coaching methodology. We'll go into maybe some of those a little bit later. I've been in the tech industry for about 20 years, mostly in startups as a product manager, primarily focused in health tech. And now I've just the last few years, I found a love of coaching, and I found a lot of people coming to me naturally for coaching. So I decided to go ahead and get trained and get certified. And I've been offering coaching to a lot of peers and a lot of teenagers as well. I have two teens myself, and our house is kind of teenage central on almost all days nowadays. So it's usually filled with kids, and every once in a while, some of them come to my wife or I for coaching. So with a larger group, we would kick this off with kind of a little bit of chat to get the engagement started, just telling us a little bit about your role and your one biggest support challenge. So Rachel, do you want to share your biggest support challenge? And you can go ahead and come off mute, or you can type it in the chat as you like.
Support challenge. Um, that's a really good question. I think for me, it's probably particularly related to the amount of time that I've been there. I think just being a year, but there's so many moving pieces and just so many parts of our department was really just learning all what do we have, what can we use. So kind of just like really learning everything that is there for everybody.
Mm, okay. So managing all the different resources and figuring out which resource to guide which student to. Is that about right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Amazing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the talk. So for administrators, a lot of the things that, what do the campus leaders on your campus believe that Gen Z wants? I, so, and this is an open question. Anyone can chime in here. I was hoping my kids would be able to join, but neither of them slept well, so they're both sleeping. Rachel, any thoughts on what the students are looking for?
I for me, so I'm also just Gen Z myself. And so sometimes I think it's like a very it's a really cool perspective to be a Gen Z administrator or staff working with Gen Z students. I think a lot of times it's having multiple ways of getting the communication. I find that typically technology works really well, especially fast technology. So instead of having like a long, directions of step by step how to do things, switching that out with like a QR code and just having it be something you can scan and something you can fill in. So I think just having things really efficient has been helpful.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. And I'm glad we got a few more people joining us. Welcome to everyone who just joined. We want to keep this session interactive. So if you have any thoughts on what Gen Z wants from a campus leader perspective, or from an administrator perspective, or heck, even from a student perspective, go ahead and weigh in. We'll give this one another few seconds or so. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. We'll get to a little bit more. We'll actually come back to this point, but I wanted to get some of your thoughts first. So for any students who were able to join us, how does your campus currently support you? And what do you feel might need some work? Do we have any students who joined the call?
Yeah, I'm not sure about one or two of the people here, but I think I can quickly start. So when I was a student myself until last year, I feel like one thing which was really like supportive for my from my campus was different events happening and having that vibe. That I can like even if I'm going around classes, I could still just be there for 5 minutes and be part of the ecosystem, either painting, art painting, or dog therapy, or anything like that. I don't have to stick for the whole hour or so, but I could just like just step in and step out quickly. So that was really fun and engaging for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Dee. Anyone else want to weigh in? All right. So Dee, do you want to speak to this one?
Yep, sure. So as I mentioned, I recently graduated last year, and I am part of first wave of Gen Z, that early edge where we still like remember life without smartphones, but we were also shaped by everything digital, global, and fast paced. So from my own experience, and now like after speaking with hundreds of students, I've realized something like really important, that Gen Zs aren't like struggling because they don't care, but they're struggling because they care a lot. We are often like overwhelmed, burnout, and not sure who really understands what we are carrying. So, based on all these conversations and a lot of research, we identified that appreciation, validation, building trust, and purpose are like four key values that Gen Zs really look for. And as we think about that, if we are able to bring that kind of culture, reflect these values in our campus, students are really able to open up, they engage, they believe that they belong, given like they are able to resonate with these values in their campuses. And when these values are missing, even the best designed programs can fall flat. So it is very important that as we go into catering to the Gen Zs, we like look into these particular values. And as I mentioned about these values, I would love to like hear from you, Mark, about what you think. How can campus inculcate these values, because this is something which Gen Zs really are looking for, be it in workplace or at campuses. But how do you think campuses could inculcate these values and start embedding those inside and outside the classroom? Would love to know from a coach standpoint.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a step back before answering that directly. So we're going to talk a little bit about something called the Kolb's learning cycle, which is a common framework used by a lot of teachers, and it works in coaching a lot as well. A lot of coaching works like this. And there's the top half of this cycle is all about doing things, active experimentation, having a concrete experience. And the bottom half of this is all about taking the time to reflect. Um, if you want to get a little bit more spiritual, I like to think about this as the bottom half is this is being, and the top half of this is kind of like doing. So being is taking the time to sit comfortably with yourself, to reflect on your experiences, and doing is, of course, the time to actually experience things. Now let's connect that with some of the Gen Z values. So with Gen Z, what they want is appreciation. And what does appreciation mean in this case? Uh, as humans, we're very attuned to where the other person is coming from. We're very sensitive to small cues. We can tell when somebody's being disingenuous. So in this case, appreciation has to be real. So one of the things that we do in coaching a lot is we appreciate people for sharing their experiences. For sharing their experiences, and as a coach, you try to do your best to have zero judgment around their experiences. Those are their experiences. That's their context. You can't judge that because it's their context. You don't understand what it is to be in their shoes. So you need to just appreciate them for sharing. And that's something that we all need to get better at as just humans. And it is especially important for Gen Z. And validation. And this isn't validation that they're right or they're wrong. Again, no judgment here. This is validation that the thing that they've shared is a challenge that they're feeling and that they're going through. You can validate that that is what they're feeling. You can validate that it is something that is important to them. Whether or not you feel that that's true is completely irrelevant because it is their context and you don't know what that is. And you can validate them for sharing that experience honestly. And when you're honest with them, they tend to be more honest with you. You do, of course, have to be a little careful. Some people like to add the drama, and sometimes they're not aware if those are their real emotions or they're trying to. So there are some subtle nuances here, of course, but the more that you trust them for what they're delivering to you, the more that you build trust with them. And part of that means allowing them to choose the next steps on their own, again, without judgment. This is very difficult. It takes a lot of practice. It takes time. And that's what a coach does. They help to guide the students to that next step and come up with experiences. The coach can share bits of their journey. They can share pieces of their perspective coming from a bit more experienced state with no attachment. And of course, a big part of coaching is allowing the students to process the different stages of the cycle and to take action, and you learn from that together. It's a learning for both parties. And this is kind of my interpretation, a little bit of the Kolb cycle. And this is a reflection of how engaged the student might be. So if they're always in the abstract conceptualization phase, they're not trying things out. They're not that engaged. If they're always doing, and we tend to have a grind, guide culture nowadays, if you're always doing, you're never taking the time to reflect and figure out, are the things that you're doing actually connected with what you want? Do they have a deeper meaning for you? And if you're always doing and you're never reflecting, you're also not really that authentically engaged. It's a lot of, so this part of the doing when you're always just go, oftentimes your goals are accidentally set by somebody else, whether that is parental pressure, whether it's peer pressure, whether it's societal pressure. If you're just doing all the time, you're not actually creating something that is meaningful to you. It's like digging a deep hole and you're just digging really quickly and you're great at digging, but at the bottom of, at the end of the day, like there may not be any water there for you. So you got to make sure that the place you're digging the hole is something you actually want to get to. Any questions so far? Or comments? All right. So the next part of this, we were going to do a couple of case studies. So we've got 6 of us.
I think, Mark, we can do it all together as well, if that is fine. Or do you?
Sure. Or we could do 2 breakouts of 3.
Okay.
But let's do 2 breakouts because I think it'll be good for us to get to at least 2 of the case studies.
Yep, sure. Let me quickly.
So let me go through the 3 different case, or do you want to just assign a case study to each group? And we'll just do it.
Well, how about like I'm creating the breakout rooms. Meanwhile, you can just quickly go through the case study so that everyone is aware.
Okay, great. So the question around these are going to be, let me jump to the questions. How would you approach this student? What would you focus on? And what might be your best coaching strategy for them? Remembering the core values of appreciation, validation, trust, and creating that higher sense of purpose. So student 1 here is a, as a lot of my kids would call them, a sweaty, meaning they're grinding all the time. And with all that grind, they're having panic attacks before every exam. They refuse counseling, and they have a very high amount of parental pressure. It's a perfect example of somebody setting your goals for you. Tough student to coach here. Case study number 2 is somebody who's overwhelmed, like a first-generation student, meaning the first one in their family to attend college. They are working 25 hours a week just to be able to pay rent, to get food, and to pay for classes. And they just feel like an imposter. And they're skipping meals in order to study. And then student number 3, and we're not going to get to all 3 of these, but student number 3 maybe is just done with school. senior, been through everything, about to pass, used to be a star student, but now it's like just doesn't seem to care anymore. And maybe has even started turning to some substances in order to cope. Okay, so these are going to be our questions for the 2 little breakouts we'll do. And have fun with your breakout. I know these are challenging cases, so have fun with them.
Okay. So if you want to take a screenshot of the cases, let us know. We can like move back. You will be able to see the okay. I see Glynis is left and Mark here. So let me check. Okay, Glynis is there as well. Mark, which room would you like to go to? The first gen or the pre-med?
Either one, you pick.
Okay. Okay, I've assigned you one and I'll go to the other one.
Hi, Mark. This is EJ from the Babson College. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, hi.
And I have a question. In which areas do you coach students?
So I'm focused on habit formation, and my specialty is actually around tiny habits. So a
Tiny
lot of the,
habits, I see.
yeah, that's right, that's right.
Are those the habits they're talking about are more focused on life, daily life, or is it, what kind of habits, academically or just
It could be
general life?
academic, it could be academic, it could be general life. So Tiny Habits is a framework that was created by an academic called BJ Fogg, and actually I'm going to go into that a little bit more later.
Mm-hmm.
So let me save that part. But one
Okay.
of the two of BJ's maxims are help people do what they already want to do and help them
Mm-hmm.
be successful. So
Okay.
a lot of that is what I do is I help a lot of students take their bigger goals and break them down into very small steps and start and
Mm-hmm.
focus on those really small steps. So that
Mm-hmm.
could be life, it could be academic. Um,
Okay, I see. Thank you.
yeah. So does anybody want to share some of the work from their groups? And by the way, Dee, we broke the rules. We did the first gen as well. Nobody knew
Oh.
anyone we met.
Okay, I can go first for my breakout room with AJ. So we discussed about talking with the student and listening to them. So a lot on like validation, particularly knowing what they are really struggling in, and then referring to the right center. So EJ mentioned like at Babson they have a first gen specific department. So making sure that they are able to refer to the right kind of resources after listening to them. That's something that really stood out in our group.
Amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, so for our group, our focus was on figuring out what the student actually wants, what they want to achieve, and providing a lot of appreciation and validation for the story that they've shared and that kind of imposter syndrome, and helping them to move forward from, and achieve what they're actually interested in. Right, we just went that. So along with a lot of this kind of appreciation and validation, it's good to have the students, ask themselves some of these kinds of questions and go through a little bit of a reflection. Because a lot of times students don't even know what it is that they actually want. They're so used to having their goals set by somebody else that it takes a little bit of time for reflection to figure out what it is that they want. And some of that starts with these kinds of deep questions. And then when they've established, what it is that they actually want, then we can help them a lot more and support them with some little small micro habits. And this is where we get into a little bit of the Tiny Habits model. So within Tiny Habits, and again, this was a framework created by BJ Fogg. He wrote a book called Tiny Habits. He is an academic out of Stanford University, has been working on this since the 90s. And his model here is that motivation is naturally variable. And what you want to do when you get a motivation spike is you actually want to come up with actions that are easy for you to do, even when your motivation is low. Because the most important part is that action is taken. And consistent action is always much more impactful than short bursts of intense action, which actually can damage us if we do short bursts of intense action all the time. We got to keep our behavior sustainable. That's what keeps us moving forward. So in order to get out consistently above the action line here, you come up with behaviors that are easy for you to do, and you build in a prompt that's built into your existing routine, and that keeps you consistently over the action line. And making these really, really teeny tiny is one of the keys. So an example of the anatomy of a good habit, according to BJ Fogg, is coming up with a prompt into your existing routine, an activity that'll get you started. So a lot of times, for example, if somebody says, "Oh, I want to start reading every work of Dostoevsky," I don't know, silly example. Point is that those are 1,000-page novels a lot of the time. Sometimes you just focus on the starter step, which is just open the book and build a habit around open the book. And when you start celebrating just that little opening of the book step, you create an emotional connection to that new behavior. So one of the keys to this is a lot of people think that habits are formed with repetition, and everyone's heard the 21 days to build a habit. Well, it turns out that according to BJ's research, what actually creates habits the fastest is an emotional connection to the habit. It has nothing to do with the number of times you do it. It's all about connecting that emotion and how you feel about that new behavior. And you can actually modify how you feel about that with that celebration step. So an example for this with maybe an anxious student is, first you could ask them, where is it that you feel that anxiety? A lot of folks will tell you that they feel it in their chest. So a habit you could help them with is, after I feel my chest tighten unexpectedly, I'll take one mindful breath, bringing awareness to the sensations and celebrating with, a little internal thank you. Thank you, body, for being able to feel these things, and a gentle smile. So a lot of times just creating a little bit of positivity around that awareness is an amazing first step. And we do have, this is different from therapy. This is all about creating actionable steps. We've got a lot of slides on the differences between coaching and therapy. Those are actually in the appendix. We'll share them with you at the end of the talk. We're not going to be going into this today. So yay, congratulations. You just took a first little step, and time to do a little celebration. All right. So thank you so much for giving us part of your Friday in the middle of the summer. That is amazing. Thank you all for showing up. And if you enjoyed the talk, go ahead and connect with us and let us know how we can help.
Yeah, and if I know we have two administrations from Babson, so we are already having we are already in connect with them, so you're good to go. But for the others, if you want to connect or share it with your college administrations, feel free to do that. We're happy to have a conversation. Do share your feedback, and with this we are open for Q&A. So if you have any questions regarding ShineCo, or any questions for Mark on College Learning Cycle or Gen Z values or the Tiny Habits framework, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions.
I have a question, but first, thank you so much. I thought this was super helpful, super informative. I took a lot of really great notes, so I'm excited to go back and review those. I saw that, Mark, you mentioned the book Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. I was wondering just if you have any other recommendations if I wanted to just get a better foundation and base of this just for myself and personal growth learning. Do you have any recommendations of where to start?
Can you what is it that you're looking to learn more about? Are you talking about learning more about coaching, learning more about habits?
I guess kind of all of it. Like I'm very new, like I haven't learned much about the coaching in general. So I think that is very interesting to me. Kind of just the stuff you went over, like the seeing the graphs and the charts, if there was anything broadly that's like a step, like dipping your toe in.
Yeah, one of my favorites that's very accessible to get started on coaching is called The Advice Trap. And it explicitly talks about like avoiding advice. You don't want to get into advice giving mode. That's kind of the antithesis of good coaching, is advice sharing. That's more mentorship, although sometimes students actually do prefer mentorship. So, so The Advice Trap is a good one. Oh, course, I really like Tiny Habits. Another amazing resource is one called Positive Intelligence. And if you go to Positive Intelligence, they actually have a great framework where they talk about they talk about these kind of behaviors and the roots of them as your saboteurs. So they have one that's called the saboteur assessment that tells you what are the things that drain your energy. And you know, but my wife's saboteurs are like hyper vigilant and the overachiever, and mine are a little bit of the avoider because there are some things that I just have trouble bringing myself to do. Like I still can't do I still haven't done my own company taxes. So we all have things that we avoid. So the Positive Intelligence, the saboteur assessment is an amazing tool, and it's a great program. Tiny Habits is really good. I would probably start with those.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And yeah, and again, if Shanko has added any new features or new services, please just keep us updated on that. We would like to learn more and how the company grows and adding more services kind of thing. Mark, are you based in Massachusetts physically, or are you? No?
No, I'm in California. I happen to
California?
be,
I
yes,
see.
I'm in the Bay Area, California.
Yes.
And you asked more about what I coach the students on.
Yeah.
For coaches, it's funny because we tend to attract the audience that is similar to us just naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So what Shanko does is they share the coaching profiles. So a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
students that come to me are ones that are interested in startups, ones that are more interested in the tech side. So I end up
I
coaching a
see.
lot of that just because those are the kinds of students that I get.
Mm-hmm. So my another question is, based on your coaching experience, what kind of areas do you think the students could be, it's a little bit easier to gain progress on? And what are the more challenging areas that probably need a little bit more support? And even from the parents' side, you know, just want to get a general idea, like which areas are easier to improve.
Okay, well, so I think the easy areas to improve are starting with basic habits for daily routines. Like
Mm-hmm.
I always to students that are struggling to kind of get into the groove or establish a routine, I'll ask them if they'd be willing to try a morning routine.
Yeah.
The morning
Mm-hmm.
routine is actually one of the most impactful ways to
Mm-hmm.
get students to the groove and to help them out with that. So a lot of times I'll kind of co-create a morning routine for the students. And that's surprisingly, even just establishing a 15 or 20-minute morning routine is super easy. And students can usually feel the difference in a week or two.
Oh, that's good to know. Yes, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, one of the more challenging ones is actually, dealing with parents.
His parents.
Yes, because a lot of
Yes.
students get a lot of pressure from parents, and
Mm-hmm.
the parents
Yeah,
some don't give them enough time to think about like, is that actually what your student wants?
exactly. Yeah.
And that is definitely the most challenging part is when there's
Mm-hmm.
conflict between what the student wants and what the parent wants.
Yeah.
And the way that I would probably coach around a conflict like that is I would encourage the student to give gratitude to the parents for what they were able to give them,
Mm-hmm.
and to quietly and gently forgive them for what they cannot get from their parents. So
Mm-hmm.
appreciate what it is that your parents have given you, and always come to them with that kind of appreciation. Because as humans, we are very empathetic. We are mirrors. So if the student can learn to have that soft, gentle forgiveness with their parents tend
Mm-hmm.
to do the same thing with them. But that said, family is always the hardest to take that to. So I would always say, practice that soft, gentle forgiveness in lower hanging fruit. Family
Yeah.
is like the top,
The
the final boss here.
yeah.
So start with the ones that have where the stakes are very low.
Great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay, then thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. It was a lovely conversation that we had, knowing the administration standpoint and as well as knowing from Gen Z standpoint about how they feel about rethinking student success, not only from that reactive side, but also being more proactive and actually trying to understand the students from putting yourself into their shoes, listening to them, appreciating them, giving them the right resources and understanding what purpose they like really drives them, what they really want. Also involving the relationship piece as Mark touched on at
Mhm.
the end as well. So